All right, so the recording is started. My apologies, I'm presenting from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they are now doing a tornado siren check. So if you hear that in the background, no worries, there's no active tornado, it's just a regularly scheduled practice run. So let's get into today's content. First of all, I want to say, there's so much information out about how expensive college is, and that's very true. So don't let those expenses really sway you from the decision for that student to follow their dream of higher education. There are definitely lifelong benefits. You can see here, significant income increase with a bachelor's degree or higher. And as well, we know that college graduates are less likely to become unemployed. And if they do become unemployed, they're actually going to return to the workforce a little faster. That was really evident during the pandemic. We saw college graduates do better, finding that next job sooner. So yes, it is a big ticket item, but you can see here there are some, significant earnings and lifetime earnings that college graduate will enjoy, throughout their lifetime. So don't let the information on college expense that we're getting ready to get into, deter that student from pursuing higher education, because it really is still worthwhile, even at the cost we're seeing in 2021. All right, so let's take a look at what you can start doing now. So maybe you're watching this webinar and you have a senior in high school, but maybe you're starting early. We really recommend you start even before high school and have your student really start to think about, where they want to go, what their career goals are. If they have information about, what their future career plans are, it really helps them kind of focus on which classes they're going to take throughout high school to really prepare them for the college experience. So, things such as, developing some good study habits, those can be very advantageous all through high school and then as you go into college. For all of this time, I think saving as much money as you possibly can is really important, because you'll find what you have saved that you don't have to take a loan to pay for college expenses is not only a savings immediately, but longer term, you could save yourself thousands of dollars in interest that might accrue if you do have to take out a loan. So, even small amounts saved really multiply with, compounding interest that you don't have to pay. Freshmen and sophomores can really think about, starting that college search. You may want to look at, colleges outside of your area, or you may want to look at colleges that have, a reputation for being advantageous for certain majors. So, for example, if you wanted to work in the aerospace industry, you might look at University of Central Florida because they're well known for their engineering programs and specifically aerospace engineering. So really start to investigate which colleges might tie in with your future plans. This is also the time to start thinking about prep classes. Are the courses that you're signing up for during your high school career preparing you for the college level coursework? So maybe you want to focus on some of the more rigorous courses to help you be prepared once you get to college. Junior year, it really gets, it's very much targeted toward your future college goals. Many students will be taking ACT, SAT, really starting to investigate scholarship opportunities, and you'll want to attend as many of the events like this that you're able to, because you'll start to learn information from different presenters. Some presenters will focus more on college planning, some will focus on the actual financial aid or Fafsa. So the more events of these that you can attend, the better, because you'll glean a little bit of information from each one. Also, if you're able to, this was not something that juniors and seniors have been able to do in the last year, but try and go visit some of those colleges. It really is an eye-opener about what college life is like on that campus. So it's really helpful if you're able to go visit those campuses and kind of get a feel for what life on that campus might be like. Seniors, right now, they're applying to colleges. If they haven't already, they should be doing their Fafsa. Continue to stay focused, and we'll talk about why that's important. And again, have those senior year activities really kind of targeted towards your future career and college goals, because that can be advantageous for you. All right, some specifics about COVID-19, because it is a little different. Many colleges are already announcing that they are now again allowing college visits. So if you were a senior and you applied without having the opportunity to go and visit on campus, you might want to do that over the summer. Admitted student days are being reestablished, so that's really great news. One of the benefits to the pandemic is that a lot of colleges have pushed out their deposit deadlines, so it gives you a little more time to get those deposits in. And then just be sure and check in with your university to find out, are they going to be having classes on campus? Is your university going to require that you have the vaccination? These are things that you want to keep in mind specific to COVID-19 that other students haven't had to think about in years past. But just wanted to give a quick mention about those. All right, so let's talk about what I think is the most important thing to stay focused on in your college planning process is scholarships, because this is money that you're not going to have to repay. These can be, started to apply for those as early as 11th grade. Not all of them, but if you find there is one that's open, even in 11th grade, go ahead and apply, because they'll reserve and hold those funds for you until you make your final college selection and get that to the financial aid office once you're actually on campus. These can be based on merit. We very commonly know about scholarships given to people who are high achievers in academics or in athletics, but there are really a variety of reasons that you might receive an award. So there are scholarships for left-handed students. There are scholarships for students who, might be a first-time college attendee for their family. So really know that it's not just academics or athletics. There are lots of reasons that you might qualify for a scholarship. And realize too that scholarships vary in amount. So you'll find them, in the $25,000 range, but you'll also find them in the $250 range. So don't, discount those smaller awards because, 10 $250 scholarships equals one $2,500 scholarship. So realize you want to have as much opportunity to get scholarships as possible. So you really want to take advantage of some of the big resources for scholarships. These are listed out for you here. Scholly is actually an app, so you can find this via your provider on the App Store or wherever you download your apps. But these are really going to put you in touch with some of the big national scholarships that are out there and available. So these are great for your student to check out, see what's being advertised there. They oftentimes will provide a link right to the application so that you don't have to figure out, where do I submit my application or what are the steps. They make it as easy as possible. These are the most reputable ones. So you want to make sure that you are visiting reputable sites to get scholarship information. The other thing I would say about scholarships is that you want to look for local and community-based scholarships as well. So those large national providers that I just shared with you, they're not going to know about some of the more local or regional ones, such as the ones I'm showing for you here. Your credit union actually has a foundation scholarship program. Check with them in early 22 for the applications. You see here the address that you can go to for that. Also know that the Iowa Credit Union Foundation has a scholarship program, and you can check back late this year and early next year for information. So these are two scholarships that you wouldn't find on those big national scholarship search sites, but these are great, and they're ones that you'll have an even better potential to receive because you're a local student for these local scholarships. I would also highly encourage you to check with your guidance counselor at the high school that you attend. Most guidance counselors will have a list of other scholarships that students from your high school have received in the past. So they might not be widely advertised, but your guidance counselor could have a list of, hey, our local Lions Club or our local Rotary Club offered this $500 scholarship. Here is what is required. So please know that you want to take advantage of those big scholarship search engines, but you also want to find as many local and community-based scholarships as you possibly can, because those can be really helpful as well. All right, some tips. Make sure you follow all of the instructions. If you're able to provide a reference letter, please do that. That can really increase your chances of being selected. And make sure those reference letters are, giving that scholarship committee or decision maker a full perspective of you. So you're probably in the scholarship application going to talk about your grade point average or whatever it was about you that made you a qualified applicant for that scholarship. So those reference letters can be used to kind of give a well-rounded picture of you as a student. So, maybe this scholarship is based on, your athletic prowess, but that reference letter could be, from someone, in your community where you've done community service, and they could talk about your commitment to helping others, your kindness. So that gives that scholarship committee or individual a picture of you, outside of what they're seeing in the scholarship application. Along those lines, do highlight any of your community involvement, your charity work. And what I would say to you here is that quality supersedes quantity. So you don't want to have your community involvement all over the place. If you can really target that towards your future career goals, your future college goals, even better, because that shows your passion for that particular area, and that can be certainly advantageous for you. Make sure you include your job history. Statistically, students who work actually do better in high school and college than students who don't, because they have to juggle the schedule, make sure they're getting things done within the time frames that they have with all of their responsibilities. So definitely highlight that part-time job if you have one. And then just remember to keep up that search. Put in the time, energy, and effort, because it will pay off for you. Those scholarships add up. So the more you apply for, the more likely you are to receive something. So keep up that effort in looking for those scholarships, and beware of scams. Some of the things you want to avoid doing, only applying for private scholarships. We'll actually look at that more closely here in a minute, but realize there's some scholarships that schools or states might provide. So make sure you're getting yourself in contention for those. Applying for too few. This is really, sad. We see a lot of activity as people go into the freshman year, searching for scholarships, looking for opportunities. And then we see a dramatic drop off as they go into the sophomore year, looking for scholarships. Please be aware, your scholarship search should continue through all of your college career. There are actually scholarships that are not going to be open to you until you are a junior or senior in college and working within your major. So you'll find there's a whole other pool of scholarships once you're in college. So don't give up that scholarship search after you start your freshman year, because there are going to be more opportunities for you as you're going through college. Make sure you're very precise with your instructions for the applications. If it says it must be received by May 5th at midnight, anything that comes in May 6th at 12:01 is going to be disqualified. So make sure you hit those deadlines. If it says it must be in 12-point font, black, then make sure you're using, black ink, 12-point font as you're submitting your information. If a scholarship has a lot of applications, Oftentimes what the committee will do is they'll just eliminate anybody who didn't follow the instructions. They don't even take the time to look at the information inside if you didn't submit it by deadline and if you didn't follow the instructions. So they kind of pare down who's eligible based on who followed directions, and then just stay persistent in that search. The more you search, the more likely you are to get one of those awards. I like to tell students that you should think of this as another part-time job. So if you spend 20 hours and you get one $1,000 scholarship, you made a way better rate than you would be paid at a part-time job. And you could have done this in your PJs on the couch, and you don't pay taxes on it. So what better way to find some extra money than really put some effort into a scholarship search and stay persistent with it. All right, so scholarships, really important to maximize your opportunities there. And then you also want to make sure that you're focusing in on the college that's the right one for you. So I have some information here for you on choosing a college. These are some of the things that you want to absolutely make sure that you investigate about any college that you're considering. These two things, job placement rate, graduation statistics, this can be really helpful. You want to know, is this college that I'm considering really going to help me get to graduation? You want to make sure that they have the support and resources that when you arrive as a freshman, that are going to help you matriculate all the way to graduation, because that's, the number one goal for colleges, getting to graduation so that you have that degree to leverage and you have that degree to really provide for the higher earnings, the things that we looked at very early on when we started the presentation. So you might be saying, great, Denise, this is wonderful, but how do I find this information? Thankfully, the National Center for Education Statistics makes it really easy. You can go to their College Navigator site. You can search by school name. You can look at schools within a particular state. Maybe I only want to look at schools that provide a bachelor's degree. You can really filter to find colleges that you're interested in through this site. And they will provide you all of the information that we just looked at on the previous screen. So I went and pulled information for Clark University. You may be familiar with them. They're in your area. And then this shows you what their estimated expenses are for the academic year. Even better is this site gives you 4 years worth of data. So hey, this was the cost back in 2017, 2018. Here's what it is this year. So am I gonna, see from 1 year to the next a big jump in how much this college is gonna cost me? Or do they pretty much keep their cost level or slight increases? That's important to know. So you want to take a look there. The other thing that a lot of families find oftentimes very surprising is how much it costs to live on campus. So for the room and board expense, that's an extra, almost $14,000 that you have to keep in mind. So this can be really helpful. When you have several colleges that you're looking at, you can see this information and do a comparison to help you determine what might be the college that's right for the student and family. So you know what it's going to cost. You also can find, what sort of financial aid is being offered at Clark. So here you can see that 72% of students attending Clark get some sort of aid. And you can see there's a good portion of that that's grant or scholarship, whether that was federal, other types, local. Here's what's really important. This line that says institutional grants or scholarships. Remember, I mentioned earlier there would be private scholarships you could apply for, but this is an institutional scholarship fund. So this means it's being awarded directly from the university. You can see 72% of students receive this, and it's a whopping $1.5 million available and the average award they gave out was over $10,000. So you want to make sure that you know what are the deadlines for that institutional scholarship. How do I apply? Is it simply completing the Fafsa, or what criteria is needed to make sure that you're in consideration for those institutional dollars? So this is something really important to look at for any of the schools that you're researching. You know, how much aid do they potentially have that they could award to me? And then how much are they typically awarding? So that's really helpful as you look at picking a college. All right, so what does the application process look like? I really kind of narrowed down my search to my top 3 or 5 or however many you're considering. What does that application process look like for those colleges? So some key things you want to keep in mind. This is what college admissions counselors tell us they're looking for. You know, what was the core strength of that student? Did they take a lot of really easy classes, or did they take the more rigorous courses that really help them prepare for college level coursework? So that's the #1 thing they're looking at. You know, how strong was that coursework during high school? Secondly, they're looking at your GPA and test scores. This year, a lot of schools have optional SAT, ACT. So if it was advantageous for seniors, they likely submitted, but if it wasn't, they likely didn't submit. So that will most likely change next year. So keep that in mind. But course strength, overall GPA, and test scores, you know, those are the top 3. And then also they're going to be looking at, you know, your demonstrated interest. Did you take those courses that really targeted that future career or college goal? What were your extracurricular activities? The 2 big things that can have a lot of influence as well are your essay. That should be all about the student, and it should be unique to the student so that that admissions officer feels like they know you by the time they get through the essay. So you really want to set yourself apart from other students that might be applying. So make it unique to you so that, you know, they couldn't have gotten that same essay about someone else and just change the name. So make it all about that student. And then those teacher and counselor recommendations can be invaluable, again, in showing who that person is, you know, outside of just the academic information that they're going to be seeing as they review your application. All right. A quick note on ethics, just be honest about everything. If you do have infractions or something that happened during high school, just be upfront, talk about what happened, how you're doing things differently, you know, how you've changed since that happened. You know, don't worry if you have something like that on your transcript or in your history. You know, just talk about how you addressed it and how you've moved on and how you successfully did that. You know, be honest about your intended major. You know, sometimes I'll hear from students that they're going to say they're taking, you know, a less exciting or less sought after major, thinking that they might get into that college because they think it might be less competitive. That's typically not the case. So just be honest about your major. Students, write your own essay. I'm saying this more to the parents. We hear from admissions counselors all the time that they suspect that mom or dad wrote the essay. Again, let it be all about the student. And students, make sure you understand that a lot of admissions offices will run your essay through Turnitin, you know, other services to make sure that it is, you know, original work that you've done. And then lastly, once you've accepted admission to your first choice college, let other colleges know that you are, you know, considering that you're not going to be attending. This is really helpful because what it does is it allows that admissions office to then, you know, make an admission offer to someone like me who's on the waiting list and desperate to go to that college you decided not to go to. So that's really something to keep in mind and do once you make your final selection on which school you'll be attending. All right. So that was a little bit about the admissions process. Let's talk about what's this going to cost me, because this is a big factor for a lot of students and families as they look at which college they're going to attend. This information is compiled by the College Board. They're the organization that runs the SAT, so you're probably familiar with them. They look every year at what average full-time cost is for an undergraduate student. You can see here at a 4-year public university, average cost is right under $26,000 a year. For a 4-year private, the average cost is almost $53,000 per year. So you probably are a little bit gasping for breath at this point seeing this, but don't let that deter you. Also, you might see $52,500 a year for a private school and think, no way am I even going to consider a private school because it is so pricey. What you want to know, though, is yes, they may have a higher upfront cost, but a lot of times they'll have that institutional money or they're able to do tuition discounting. They may have some ways to mitigate that higher cost that actually make it just as or more affordable than the public universities. So please don't let that upfront cost deter you from applying to any of the schools that you really want to go to. So if that's your dream school, it may have a higher cost up front, but because of institutional scholarships or other things that financial aid office is able to do, it could end up being just as or more affordable than the public schools. So please, make your college selections based on what's the right program for the student, what program has the best, programs for their future career goals. All right, so what's this path to college look like? You're going to apply, you'll get acceptance letters. Once you have your acceptance letters, you're going to definitely want to look at the financial aid website for that particular college. Again, refresh yourself with what the cost of attendance is. You're going to complete your FAFSA. When you complete your FAFSA, and we'll talk in depth about the FAFSA, you want to include all of those colleges that you're seriously considering attending. So you can send your FAFSA results to up to 10 universities. And that university will use that information from your FAFSA to build an award letter for you. So then you can really look at, what is this college offering versus what this other college is offering and weigh your options. The thing that's important to know here is that it does say the senior's path to college. Parents, you'll be very surprised, but those FAFSA results go to your student. So make sure your student is checking their email and their accounts to see what those results are. You're more than likely going to be paying, but the information is going to the student. I very commonly will hear from parents, well, we did the FAFSA, but I never heard anything. And that's because the results went to the student, not to you, the parent. So just a word of information there for that. All right, so let's talk specifically about the free application for federal student aid, most commonly known as the FAFSA. Hopefully, if you have a junior or senior, you're already, having received information from the high school that your student is attending. What you want to know is that this is the official FAFSA website. Please be cautious and make sure that you're on the correct FAFSA site. It should end in .gov. If you're on a site that ends in .org, .edu, it's very likely a scam site. So make sure that you're on the official FAFSA site ending in .gov. Submitting the FAFSA is a very straightforward process. It's designed to take an average of about 20 minutes. So it's not very rigorous or so overwhelming that you should put it off. Get it done right away. The FAFSA actually opens on October 1st. So if you have a senior in high school, you should have done your FAFSA on October 1st or as close to that date as possible. If you haven't already, get it done now. And then for those of you who are attending that have a junior, mark your calendars for October 1st. so that you can, in their senior year, get that FAFSA submitted right away. Please do submit it online. Unless you have extremely extenuating circumstances that you have to do it by mail, online is much preferred. You will do the FAFSA annually. So you'll do this as they go into their freshman year, excuse me, as they go into their sophomore, junior, senior, and even a super senior year if they do a 5-year program. So please do know that you will do the FAFSA annually. Also, for parents who are watching who have more than one student that will be in college at the same time, you'll do a separate FAFSA for each student that you have in college. So please do realize it is annual, and you'll have a separate FAFSA for each student. Be aware of scams. Just like I said, you need to be on that .gov site. There will be, scammers that will say, hey, if we help you do your FAFSA, we'll get you more financial aid. You just need to pay us a small fee of $99. The FAFSA is free. It should always be free. Please don't pay anyone to help you do the FAFSA. As I said, it's very straightforward. There's even an opportunity to import your information directly from your tax return, from the IRS into the FAFSA. So just be aware of those scams. While we're talking about scams, I want to reiterate too that there could be scams related to scholarship searches. Please don't ever pay anyone to help you find scholarships either. That's what the financial aid office at the college is for. That's what your high school guidance counselor is for. If you're asked to pay to find or apply for a scholarship or the FAFSA, that's a huge red flag. Do not go stop and reassess, am I working with a reputable person or firm here? So unfortunately, something you have to be aware of because it is pretty prevalent in both scholarship searches and completing the FAFSA. All right, what to expect with the FAFSA process? So you're going to, as I said, send your information to up to 10 colleges or universities where you're interested in attending. Once that FAFSA is submitted, the financial aid office will build an award for you. So you'll get a letter. Oftentimes it's digital. And again, parents, it's going to the student. So you probably will never see that letter unless your student is checking their email or their connection with that university. These are the types of aid that you might see on that award letter, and we'll actually look at these a little more closely. All right, so first, let's look at determining what you need. So we know we looked at cost, but we want to kind of take a real life example here and go through it. So let's say your student had on their top list of schools, University of Success. So you get that award letter and it says, hey, we're going to provide to you a subsidized federal loan, an unsubsidized federal loan. The school is going to give you $1,500. Your state scholarship is $1,000, and you're going to have work study for $2,000. So you're being given $10,000 in financial aid. And you might be saying to yourself, wait, is a loan financial aid? Yes, in the world of financial aid, federal loans are considered financial aid. So just be aware of that. So your award is $10,000. The cost to go to University of Success is $20,000. That means you've got $10,000 that you need to cover in some way. So let's see what that looks like in reality. You really want to take a look at what of that cost is really fixed that I have to pay. Oftentimes that's tuition and fees. There are going to be other costs that you might have some flexibility with. So you want to look at what cost could I possibly adjust to help bring down that $10,000. The other thing you want to keep in mind is you may need to do an appeal, and we'll talk about what reasons you have for appealing your financial aid award. And then if you have other income sources that you don't have to, you could maybe pay that $10,000 out of pocket, or a great option might be a tuition payment plan, which I'll share with you more information on that. But let's take a look here at eliminating some of the unneeded flexible expenses. So maybe if you're looking at several schools, but one of them affords you the opportunity to stay living at home with your parents, you could eliminate a lot of expense for room and board. So you can very well save some good money there. Right now, we're budgeting here, the school is budgeting $2,000 for books. You might have to pay that, or you could look at, instead of getting the physical hardbound book, maybe you just buy an access code for that book, and then you can download it onto your phone or onto your iPad, and that's going to be typically half the cost of doing the traditional hardbound book. Or maybe a lot of colleges will have, chats where you could say, hey, I took Gen Chem last semester. I'll trade my Gen Chem book for general biology. And then you meet up at the union and trade books. So there are some really creative ways that you can help save money there. Your personal expenses, those, just look where you can save funds instead of, buying coffee on campus. Maybe you make it at home. Anything you can save now is going to be beneficial because you won't have to take a loan for it, which means you won't have interest that's going to accrue on it. So really look at, do I really need to pay that $10,000, or where can I shave some off of those expenses to save myself some money? So this is just an example of what that might look like. All right, the reasons you could appeal your award, I mentioned those. Those are listed for you here. I especially wanted to mention these because last year was so different. We saw lots of people who were laid off or furloughed for a portion of the year. So if you've had changes in your personal situation since that tax return was filed that they're using for your FAFSA, you can certainly appeal your award. The thing you want to keep in mind with an appeal to your award is it's most commonly a manual process. So this takes a while. So if you do know that you're going to have to appeal your award based on these changes in personal circumstances, start early because oftentimes this is one person in the financial aid office that handles appeals. Or at bigger universities, it's oftentimes a committee, and that committee may only meet once every month. So if you don't hit them, right before their meeting for that month, it might be a whole nother month before you get your appeal looked at. So if you do know you're going to have to appeal, make sure you start the process early and give plenty of time for that financial aid office to have all of the documentation that they're probably going to request that you submit to them for the appeal, and give yourself lots of time so you're not having to scramble last minute. All right, so we know the types of aid that you might see on the award letter. I shared that with you. Hey, these expenses that have been forecasted for me, where can I save on that potentially? And then we're going to look at a value-based approach at helping you pay for whatever that balance is that you owe to the university. So let's look at what this looks like. So first of all, you want to get all the free money you can, grants, scholarships, tuition discounting. Then the next layer that you want to look at accepting in that financial aid award is the cheap money. We affectionately refer to the federal direct loan as cheap money. And then lastly, you'll have gap financing. So remember, we had that $10,000 that we had to pay. See what you can save there so that you're not paying the full $10,000. And once you know what that exact number is that you still have to pay, here are some things that you could think about in helping you meet that gap, as it's known. Some families will have set aside money in a 529 plan. Others might plan to use home equity. Tuition payment plans are an excellent option. We'll look at those in just a second. And then for most families, what they're going to do is they're going to decide between a federal plus loan or a private student loan. So let's see what this means to you. The financial aid office follows this value-based approach as well. So they are first going to give you scholarships and grants. So anything that you don't have to repay, that's their priority to award to you. So any free money that they can grant you on your award from the government, the state, the school, they will first give that to you. Again, this doesn't have to be repaid, but please realize there may be obligations to that scholarship. So as an example, I have a friend, she graduated from University of Tulsa. She went full ride for 4 years as a music major. She played every honor society induction, every president's reception, every wedding for a big donor that wanted to have a string quartet. I mean, they really got their money's worth. So realize you do have oftentimes obligations that you must fulfill in order to keep that scholarship. It could be that if you're an academic scholar, if you don't maintain a certain grade point average, then that scholarship could be in jeopardy. So realize you have to think about what activities do I need to make sure I'm doing to keep those scholarship dollars. And then the other thing is you want to make sure is this scholarship renewable or is this a one-time scholarship? So if it's a renewable scholarship, that means if you meet the criteria for that scholarship your freshman year, you're going to automatically get it again as a sophomore. But there will be scholarships that could be awarded that are 1 year only. The school may not know if they'll have those funds next year. So you want to make sure and find out that information if you see scholarships on your award letter. The major grants that are available to you through the federal government are listed here for you. The federal Pell Grant being the most common. This is awarded based on financial need in the household. So the Fafsa will determine who's going to get the Pell Grant. So the lower the household income, the more likely you are to receive a federal Pell Grant. I've listed for you here the maximum awards by the time frames indicated, but you could, maybe the FAFSA results mean that you're eligible for $3,495. These are the maximums that you might receive. The Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, I actually hope nobody gets this. This is only for students whose parent or guardian died in Iraq or Afghanistan while serving. So it is a generous award, but the qualification is a very tough one. Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. This is between $100 to $4,000 a year, again, determined by financial need in the household. The TEACH grant, this is awarded to education majors. So if you're an education major, you know that you're going to be teaching, you can receive a TEACH grant. However, there is, a string attached. You have to agree to serve for a certain period of time, typically 4 years, in an underserved school. So that's typically either low income or a more rural area where they have a harder time recruiting teachers. If you fulfill that requirement, it truly was a grant. It's no repayment required. If, however, you do not fulfill that requirement, it converts from a grant into a loan, and then you do have to repay it. The financial aid office will fully disclose this, but realize that that's one of the things that's labeled as a grant that can turn into a loan later. All right, federal work study. This is another opportunity that's granted based on financial needs. So the students who have the greatest financial need are more likely to get offered federal work study. It's essentially a part-time job on campus. They pay at least a minimum wage. The federal work study program is awesome. If you get offered federal work study, I would highly encourage you to take advantage. The great thing about it is these jobs are oftentimes within the academic departments at the university. So you'll get to know the professors, you'll get to know the staff at the college. This oftentimes is a wonderful way to have flexibility with your work schedule. So as a college student, you may have, Tuesdays and Thursdays pretty free one semester, and then the next semester, every Tuesday and Thursday is fully booked. So that's hard when you're working off campus. That outside employer may say, sorry, we have to have you here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're going to have to find somebody else. So it gets you really connected on campus, as well as they're much more flexible than an off-campus employer. So if you do get offered federal work study, I would encourage you to take it. Tuition payment plans. I love tuition payment plans. I affectionately refer to this as college on layaway, because what it allows you to do, it allows you to make 10 monthly installments throughout the academic year. So the great thing about tuition payment plans, they are interest-free. So you don't pay any interest for those 10 months. So you can split your bill over those 10 months. There oftentimes is a fee to participate in tuition payment plans. $50 to $100 is pretty common, but that's way less expensive than paying interest on what you're paying via tuition payment plan. The other thing to know is you don't have to sign up for the full amount. So let's say you did owe that full $10,000 and you think, I could never pay $1,000 a month over those 10 months in a tuition payment plan. That's okay. Maybe your budget will only allow you to pay $200 a month, but you could sign up for a tuition payment plan for $2,000, pay your $200 a month, and then that's $2,000 that you won't have to pay interest on for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So really a great opportunity. This is oftentimes facilitated through the bursar or the campus billing office. You can ask your financial aid administrator if they have tuition payment plans, and they'll get you connected to the right person on campus. But you know, a great way to do some interest-free, smaller monthly payments. All right, so we've gotten a look at the scholarships, tuition payment plans. Now let's look at the cheap option, the federal student loan. So the federal direct loan is a loan made by the federal government, the Department of Education, directly to the student. You can see here the criteria to receive the federal direct student loan. This is made available after the Fafsa has been completed. So you want to make sure your Fafsa has been completed. Once you do, the government will determine whether they are going to subsidize that loan or whether it will be unsubsidized. So when you complete your FAFSA, if there's financial need in the household, according to the Department of Education, then the government will actually pay some of the interest on this for you while you're in school and for 6 months after you leave school. If there's not financial need in the household as determined when the FAFSA was completed, the student will be required for any interest. The student will be responsible for any interest that accrues while they're in school and for 6 months after they leave school. You see here, this loan is made in the name of the student only. It's a fixed interest rate of 2.75%, and it's got a low origination fee of just over 1%. This is really a great deal. When you think about it, a student who's going right from high school, who may or may not have ever had a job, they're not going to have any job once they get to college. They don't have any assets, to pledge. To get a fixed rate loan at 2.75% is a really great deal. So we definitely encourage you as a student to take advantage of this low cost or cheap loan. The downside to the direct student loan is that it's just not a huge award. The maximum a freshman student could receive is $5,500. So if you've got to pay $10,000, but this is only going to cover $5,500, you're still going to have to figure out some additional financing. So the great thing is it is available. So take advantage of that low fixed interest rate. If there's financial need in the household when that FAFSA was completed, the government will subsidize the interest on up to $3,500 of that $5,500 loan. You don't get both of these. It just means that of that $5,500, you could have interest subsidized on up to $3,500 of that. You can see the loan limits do increase depending on how you matriculate through college. Independent students can borrow at higher levels, but you'll see here the qualifications to be an independent student are not the traditional college student. So unless you meet one of these criteria listed here, you're only going to be able to borrow at that dependent student level. All right, so we've gotten our free money, we've gotten our cheap direct student loan. Now, what other options do we have to pay for any remaining balance? So things you want to think about, again, those 529 plans, home equity, tuition payment plans. We don't recommend using retirement accounts. You can check with your own personal situation, but it isn't anything that we would recommend. The big option that most families are going to consider are the PLUS loan, which is the parent loan, or a private student loan. And we'll look at how these work. So the direct PLUS loan, this is for the parent. This is for biological, adoptive, sometimes a step parent, and it's not made in the student's name. Parent, you're taking 100% responsibility for this loan. So this is your loan in your name. You can borrow up to the cost of attendance. So whatever remaining balance you need to have paid, you can borrow up to that amount. It's a fixed interest rate of 5.3%. You get 10 years to pay it back. You can enter repayment immediately, or you can defer repaying until the student graduates. And then you want to make sure that you're aware that this loan is in your name. The downside to the direct PLUS loan is that the origination fee is a whopper. It's over 4%. So if I were to take out that $10,000 parent loan, I'm going to pay $422.80 just to get the loan. So it is a very expensive origination fee. I should mention for the direct student loan that we just looked at and the direct PLUS or parent loan, these interest rates are fixed until June 30th. The Department of Education has not announced what the new rates will be effective July 1st. Historically, they're very late in announcing those interest rates. I checked this morning just to see by chance if anything was out there. It's not yet, but please do be aware that the rates and origination fees I'm sharing with you are only good until June 30th. July 1st, the Department of Education will announce new rates. Speculation is it will be very similar, but it's not guaranteed. So just wanted to share that with you. All right, so that's the federal option for parents. Parents will also likely look at, well, what if I went with a private student loan? How does that work? So the private student loan is a little different. We don't recommend you use a private student loan to replace the federal direct student loan. You want to get that 2.75 fixed interest rate for the student. So private loans should be used for anything after the student has already gotten their direct loan. These are different in the marketplace from the parent loan in that they're going to be really based on a student and co-borrower joint effort. So a lot of times the parent loan is, or all the time the parent loan is just in the name of the parent. With private student loans, this is going to be the student and their co-borrower applying together to help them qualify. While that PLUS loan has a very hefty origination fee, most private student loans have little to none. And then the other big perk for a private student loan is that it does extend your repayment many times out to 20 or 25 years. So this can be really helpful for families who are looking to get the lowest possible monthly payment. So one of the perks for that as well. All right, so this is general marketplace information for private student loans. Wanted to share with you some specifics about your credit union solution for you. So DePaco has an amazing student choice partnership solution. It's very cost effective. The wonderful thing about it, it is a line of credit. So for all of the loans we looked at until now, just like the Fafsa, you have to do it each and every year. So you're going to apply as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, a senior. that can be detrimental because you're pulling credit every year, you're booking a new loan every year. So realize the line of credit is a wonderful way to get that financing arranged for the full college career. So you're only going to have to apply when the student starts college, and then the line is there ready to go for you, and you simply draw from it each academic year as you need to. You can get up to $60,000. There are nearly 2,000 eligible schools. These are all the big schools, public and private, across the US. And the great thing is DePaco's rates start as low as 4 3/4%. So it's a very nicely priced program. And as you can see here, no origination fee, which is even better. You also can reduce your interest rate by another 1/4% once you're in repayment by signing up to have your payments automatically deducted. Depending on how much you owe when you enter repayment, you'll get 20 or 25 years to pay it off. So if you owe $40,000 or more, you get the full 25 years to pay it off. No payments are required while that student is in school and for 6 months after they leave school. So while that student is attending college, you don't have to make payments on it. The other wonderful thing about this, it's that student and parent or co-borrower working together to get the line of credit. Once that line of credit has been in repayment for at least 48 months, the co-borrower can apply to be released from responsibility. So this is great because a lot of parents and co-borrowers, they want to help the student get through college. They want to help them successfully get into repayment, but they want to get off the hook at some point. And so this co-borrower release option makes that possible. So while it's open, while the student is in school, and for that repayment period right out of school, it's student and their co-borrower can be taken off after we do a review of the student on their own. And as long as they meet the underwriting criteria, then the co-borrower's name is taken off. If you wanted to, you can make payments while the student is in school towards their interest or principal and interest. The other really great thing about this is that for students who graduate, woohoo, that's awesome. They get their first job, even better. They see their first salary and wah, it is not what they were hoping for. The line of credit actually allows for a graduated repayment plan. So this means the first 2 years that the line is in repayment, it's a reduced payment amount. So this gives that student time to find a different job or get a couple pay increases. So it helps them manage their repayment, keep everything right on time, and then they make up for that 2 years of reduced payments for the remainder of the term. The other thing that's really great about your credit union's line of credit is that there are no prepayment penalties. So while you may have 20 or 25 years to pay it off, you can absolutely pay it off sooner without penalty. And that will save you a lot of money in interest if you're able to pay it off sooner. So the credit union has really made it as advantageous as they possibly can. To get more information, if you wanted to see, what their information is like, you can go right here to their co-branded site with student choice. This is the URL for that, and you can see more information in paying for college. While you're attending today's webinar, I would encourage you to register for another webinar that we're presenting on June 24th. The register button is there. And then before we wrap up, I wanted to share with you some additional resources for after our time together. I know I gave you a lot of information over the course of this hour. So you may have questions that come up later, and we absolutely will help. We have a college access counselor. DePaco makes our college access counselor available to you at no cost. So you can submit a question online, or you can schedule a 30-minute one-on-one phone meeting with our college access counselor at no charge. This is provided to you from DePaco. So when you're on the DePaco site listed here, If you go to resources, you'll see this information to either submit your question or schedule an appointment. I've also listed the address here if you wanted to submit that question or make an appointment. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I really appreciate your time and attention. I hope you found this advantageous as you look at paying for college, getting ready to hit campus. I will stop the recording, and then I will open the lines up for anybody who wants to stay after and ask questions.